Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Wolfe. I am here with some parents from SSTI, the Southeastern Summer Theater Institute. I am the founder and director of that program and also the new program, the College Audition Edge. I'm so excited to be with you this evening to talk a little bit about college auditions. As you can hear, right at the time that we've gotten ready to go live, our mascot has decided to have the zoomies on the floor. So if you hear a dog right now barking, that is Georgia the dog. She picked a perfectly opportune time. With me live tonight, I have 4 parents who are within the SSTI family, but they are currently at the finish line of the college audition journey. As you know, if you're with us, Debbie, praise hands. As you know, it's an arduous task. It's a task that parents often are completely unfamiliar with, the process of getting into musical theater universities. You know, for most people, oftentimes it will be their child applies to college, they get the big envelope in the mail, and that's it. But for musical theater students, that is only the very first step. That's the easy part. The next part becomes the challenging audition process, where you're going from unified auditions to on-campus visits. It's quite all-consuming for your senior year and can feel overwhelming. So we're having this event tonight with these 4 parents to share some tips, some tricks, things they've learned over the course of the last year as they've quite literally journeyed across America with their children, supporting their dreams and helping them reach what will eventually be their home. And that's the big takeaway. That's the thing that I want parents to know at the core, that this is stressful, but your child is going to find a collegiate home. They're going to find somewhere that makes them feel welcomed, valued, and excited to continue doing what they love. My friend Mark Christine from College Audition Coach always says how lucky we are that this is the thing that the students love and what they get to do. So we're happy to help them pursue that. But part of that is just the knowledge base, helping them pursue that. We need to know what we don't know about this process. And that's why I'm going to welcome in my friends here. Here in the room with us, we have Debbie, Fed's mom. We have Bill, Cole's dad, Emily, Lizzie's mom, and Susanna, Laird's mom. I'm going to actually ask our mascot to get taken out of the room right now as we get ready to do some introductions. Debbie, I'm going to unmute you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about Fed's journey.
Okay. I'm Debbie Hradek. I'm Federico's mom. Our journey has been across the country, many unifieds, moonifieds on campus, a total of 33 auditions for Fed. And he's an alumni of SSTI of many years. And we did some on-campus master classes starting his sophomore summer, and just since then have really spent a lot of time researching and visiting schools.
Totally. And you're from Florida.
Oh yeah, Bradenton, Florida.
Bradenton, Florida. Amazing. We're going to pass the ball over there. Bill, you are next up on my screen. Bill, welcome. Cole's dad, most well known in circles, Cole's dad. That has become your moniker. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you and Cole have been up to this entire year.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm Bill Hall. We're from suburb of Atlanta, just north of Atlanta. And so my son Cole, he's done SSTI for 3 years in a row and wants to do a 4th. And from an audition perspective, he has had, I counted it up earlier, he has 25 auditions total. 2 schools in there where you had to do multiple. And in fact, I'm the only one. We're still going. We have an audition this weekend, Florida State. They do 3 rounds of auditions. And so technically he will have done 3 auditions for them by the time we get there this weekend. And so he'll have a total of 26 when we're all said and done. And that includes a few walk-ins. He did moonifieds, unifieds, on campus, and we've just had fun traveling around the country.
Yeah, amazing. And folks, this is not, you hear these numbers, and I know it sounds just baffling to think 25 auditions. That's the common number, or very normal number, dare I say, for the college audition process. There's 3,000 students sometimes competing for 12 spots at some of the top tier programs. And you do really have to kind of spread out your odds a little bit in this really competitive process. Emily, you have completed Lizzie's audition journey. And what are you going to do when you finish your audition journey? You're going to Disney World. That's where you are right now, celebrating a long year of auditioning. Tell us about what you and Lizzie have been up to.
We have had a great year, and actually Lizzie's dad went with us on every single audition trip. We had 24 auditions. I haven't counted up the trips, but 4 of them were virtual, and I think we only did 3 or 4 at Unifieds. We've been on at least probably 13 or 14 big trips to do all these auditions, and it has been so much fun. I know that maybe you're not supposed to say that, but it's been amazing. We've had such a great time.
Well, that's the thing. You've got to try to. I mean, it has to be done. So find little ways to make it fun. And I've seen all of you through just being our Facebook connectivity long after your students. Some of them have been several years since at SSTI for a few students. And I just have seen you all on this journey. So that's why I asked you here tonight, because yes, you have made it fun. You have made the best out of what is a lengthy and can be exhausting year. Susanna, our last face there, coming to us live from Laird's audition studio there. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and your journeys with Laird this year. Oh, I think you're muted. I'm sorry, I didn't unmute you. There you are. Now you're unmuted.
Hi. So Laird and I are from Corpus Christi, Texas, where people don't know what musical theater is. They're like, they kind of know what it is, but not really. No one here does it, except for Laird, it feels like. Laird did 16 auditions, so a little nerve-wracking that he did fewer than most kids, but that was, everybody has their own journey, and that was ours. So he did 16, and he did 5 of those on campus, and he did 1 virtual, and he did 10 at Chicago Unifieds. And Laird, we didn't even know that you could get a degree in musical theater in college. Laird learned about SSTI and did that between his freshman and sophomore year of high school. He did the SSTI Essentials, which is the 2-week program, a few years ago, and just loved it. And that was the summer that he realized that he could do this, like for real. And so we have had a lot of fun traveling and doing the audition process. It is nerve-wracking, and it is not for the weak of heart, for sure.
For sure. Which brings us to our first question here that we have for the group, and we'll hop around. So if somebody wants to let me know and jump in, but so in preparation for the year, I mean, you just mentioned Laird at SSTI Essentials, but overall, this obviously very broadly, not just SSTI specific. What were some of the things that you did to prepare yourselves for this upcoming year? I know, Debbie, you mentioned you were doing Moonifieds Junior for a couple of years with Fed. What were some of the things that you can do? And we'll hop around with quick answers as you've got them. Does anybody, Debbie, take it away.
Yeah, sure. Fed did Moonifieds Junior for the first time his sophomore year, and that's when our eyes were really open to this whole process and the timeline and the intensity. I had no idea. So being a sophomore, we weren't in panic mode, but I immediately knew we had to step up to the plate and, get our radar out for all the schools and all the research to start early so that we wouldn't be frantic, junior year with feeling like we needed to really make it all consuming as far as the research. But so we went to Moonifieds Junior twice, and we also found College Audition Coach, the College Audition. Some of the companies offer on-campus master classes that we also did his sophomore and junior year. So that was wonderful to be able to, be in a group of 12 on the campus with the faculty, working material, feeling, getting the vibe for the campus, for the faculty, what they like, getting wonderful feedback, not only on your own work, but the other students' work. So you kind of really got to feel what their school was about and looking for. So I found those in Fed also really greatly helpful.
Yeah, amazing. Bill, what advice would you give in the preparation from all that you did?
All right. So before we got on this call, we had a pre-call, and one of the parents called me a nerd. So we won't call them out, but see. But so really, I started researching this 4 years ago. I still remember the phone call from Ben when we got into SSTI, because that was one of Cole's very first programs. And in fact, it had gone to spam, and Ben called me and said, "Hey, we just want to make sure." And so, so I took a few notes here on some things that I think everyone should be thinking about. Some of this is if before your junior year, if you've got plenty of time, and then some of it just for the other. But some things that we found helpful were piano classes and music theory, because during your audition season, you will be asked to work with accompanist. And so it's helpful if you have at least a base level knowledge of some of that. ACT prep, essay prep, all of that is you're doing all of that the end of your summer before you're going to audition. So that's something important too. And then, as Debbie said, and what I thought was the most helpful is you need to find a program the summer before you're going to go through audition season that, in my opinion, will expose you to multiple professors at these universities and give you a chance to do mock auditions, because that's really where you're going to feel the best, get a feel for the room and what the process is like. For us, we did 3 different programs this last summer, actually, and it really helped Cole feel comfortable in the room, and whether it was at Moonifieds or at Unifieds or on campus. So, and then dance, that's the last thing I would mention. Dance. There's so much that goes on, and so the more dance you can get, do that. And then the last thing, which we'll talk about later in depth more, but find your tribe early, because particularly the 3 ladies on this call, and even Ben to some degree at some point, you've got to find a tribe of people to help you get through this. It's a crazy, arduous process. It's definitely fun, as Emily said, but it's also stressful. And so you need people that are going to help you get through it and can bounce things off.
I love it. We love a list of things. Those are amazing. Thank you, Bill. Incredible. Emily or Susanna, do you want to jump on this question?
I think I just would add that we did a lot of the same stuff that Debbie did. We started with Debbie as a sophomore with Moonified Juniors, and we were lucky enough to do Essentials, and we've done the musical theater program at SSTI a couple times. And I asked Lizzie when we were talking about this call, what do you think helped you the most heading into this season of auditions? And she really feels like she has been in front of so many different people over the last 3 years. From Essentials, she's worked with tons of the college professors. We went to every master class we could get to. And she said she knows it's not going to help her get into that school, but it gives her a level of comfort that she's able to act like a human being when she gets in the room. And that's actually really, I would say that's really difficult. I mean, and it's just exposure and doing it over and over until you kind of realize everybody's rooting for you. So I think that was really key for her.
I think that's an amazing answer. Absolutely. Just the practice of doing it. We also do it with our tech students. It's like the practice of the interviews, the rote physical memory of going in and introducing yourself and like being at peace and being yourself. For sure. Susanna, I know I'll come to you first on the next one. You probably feel like it's all been covered.
That's okay.
Anything you want to add?
Did cover a lot, but I would say not only do kids need to prepare, but parents need to prepare. You both have different things to prepare for, right? So you need to research schools. You need to interview coaches if you're thinking about having a coach or not. A lot of people will get through halfway through the process and then be like, oh my gosh, we needed a coach. Why didn't we do that? You can interview coaches for free. You can get a free consultation, interview all those coaches. We got so much information just from interviewing people. They would suggest schools after they would see later, because in those consultations, they'll have your kids sing or do a monologue. They'll talk to the parent, talk to the kid. And it's so inclusive and comprehensive. It's really surprising that in such a short amount of time, they can really give you some feedback. I think we interviewed 6 or 7 coaches, and we were able to build some of his school list, just really get an idea of and I got to watch him kind of feel and see what it was that he wanted. Just as he's interviewing the coaches, he's learning what he wants through the process of doing that. So I highly recommend that. And then those summer programs, if you can get in any summer program, I know a lot of people talk about, well, it's so expensive. I will tell you there are some that are super expensive and some that are not as expensive. Laird did SSTI. He did the College Audition Conservatory. He also did the College Audition Prep Weekend in Dallas. And I think a lot of people don't know about that one because it's really small. And I think they just advertise it in Dallas. It's very inexpensive. And it puts you with not those top 10 schools. It puts you with the more lower tier schools, mid-tier schools. And I think that really helped Laird have those different experiences. And because he's thinking, oh, you have to go to one of these top tier schools. But then when he did CapW, after he did the other programs, it was like, oh, these are just people. These are humans that I'm having a human connection with. And so I think it was really valuable for him to do different programs at different points in the process.
I love that. And I love the tip about interviewing the coaches. And I'll speak to just very quickly what you mentioned there about the top 10 schools. We had a question about that from one of our alum families to mention in this chat. Those lists come out at the top so-and-so school, and it really is arbitrary. Your kid may walk into a school that's not in that top 10 list, and they may be excited about your child, and that gets your child excited. And especially in this process, sometimes they can feel like a number. Sometimes they can feel just like just somebody love me, that type of thing. A school that maybe is not on that top 10 list may be the perfect home that's excited about your kid, excited about opportunities. Like I know Debbie's son Fed also is interested in like directing. So there's like specific schools that maybe are in that top 10 that maybe are so cookie cutter in their education that they may not have the lateral ability to explore different things other than just music, theater, performance. So you're going to find some of those mid-tier schools on those lists are maybe ones that are the most inviting and welcoming to your child's specific passions. I love it. We're gonna keep rolling here with our questions. Our next one up is a little bit about this travel. So there is some strategy, obviously, to how you best execute all of the motion that has to happen with this. Do you always want to visit a school before you've gotten in? Talking about unified auditions, briefly to summarize that, there are 3 locations every year in the United States. It's always in the dead of winter. It's New York, it's Chicago, and it's LA, where there are unified auditions where a bunch of schools come to one city and you sign up for times through those schools to audition for them all in one spot. That's when we talk about unifieds, that's what they are. Moments ago, we've talked a little bit about Moonifieds and Moonifieds Junior. That is a private, separate audition through the College Audition Coach, which we have a lot of students that go through there. I personally I think the world of College Audition Coach and what they do. If you're a student of them, you get to do a similar private audition to Unifieds called Moonifieds. The founder of the company's nickname was Moon, hence Moonifieds. That's where that came from. And Debbie talked about Moonifieds Junior, which is a program they have where into your sophomore and junior year, you can go and audit kind of the process and see. And I know that most of these kids actually probably did that as well. But let's talk visiting, travel, and unified auditions, on-campus auditions. If you can give me some of your tips for how this is survivable, both on budget, on your time, on your child also being a senior in high school. What are some of the takeaways and tips that you can offer parents who are getting ready to look ahead at this big travel calendar? Susanna, you want to start for us this time?
Sure. I think I'm the only person here that Laird and I did not do Moonifieds. We looked at it. We just, different things work for different people. It's a journey. No one in this process, I just want to say this, that no 2 paths are the same. This process is so different for every single parent, every single student. So we did not do Munifieds. We chose to do his some schools that he really, really felt strongly about on campus. So he did 5 auditions on campus, and we traveled there on the weekends. And then ones that didn't work in his schedule or for various reasons, we did at Chicago Unifieds. So he did a total of 16. He did 1 virtual, 5 on campus, and then 10 in Chicago. I will say the caveat to that is that the people that did those auditions in Munifieds in November, they all they started having offers come in and were a little bit more relaxed. Laird and I started getting really nervous when January got here, and he didn't have any offers and he hadn't really done any auditions. And that was really scary for us. But then once he got to Chicago Unifieds, he really felt like it was the right thing for him, because he has not had much training. We live in an area where there aren't a lot of resources. And he was like, that extra 3-4 months of training that I had really made a difference for him. And so he felt like it was the right path for him. That's not for everybody. And I would recommend, as far as airline strategies, tips, tricks, that sort of thing for travel, we used our American Express card for everything. We went through American Express Travel. We have thousands of points on there now. We have a son that lives in Costa Rica, and we plan to go visit him and use those points. And so, and I think people get Southwest credit cards. There's lots of things that you can do. My husband did not attend any of the auditions with us, just Laird and I did. We tried to just do a long weekend. I did ask Laird yesterday, I said, what did we do? And he said, logistics, Mom, logistics. He said that was so important to him that I took care of all those logistics, because there is so much uncertainty in this process. If I could control certain things for him, it just eased his nerves and gave him a sense of comfort, knowing that we were arriving not at 10 o'clock the night before the audition. We were arriving the day before or the morning before. So just little things. I say logistics is super important. As a parent, that I felt like that was one of my biggest jobs for sure, is just make sure you have a list of everything you need. We had a travel kit that had everything in the world in it. We had tea and honey and lint rollers and safety pins and Advil. And I mean, the list goes on. Lots of lists, lots of logistics, and lots of points on my American Express Travel.
Totally. Does anybody else, in order for us to get through our questions, we probably won't hop to all 4 of each question. Does anybody else have an add-on tips, tricks?
One thing that I didn't realize when we started this process, Cole had always been a tag along on my TSA, but then during this process, he turned 18 and was no longer allowed to do my TSA pre-check. So, and it was too late to get him TSA pre-checked. So we just think about that if you can, from a perspective.
Totally. Emily?
I would say that one thing that made a huge difference, I felt like for us, was having pre-screens done very early. We felt like it gave us the first shot at audition, and that made a big difference for us, because there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, as Susanna said, and you kind of you can have a plan of what you want to do, but first you have to pass the pre-screens. And there are situations where kids don't get to audition because all the spots for auditions are gone by the time they pass the pre-screen. And to me, I mean, that makes my heart break, just to not even get the shot. So that's something I would recommend, because it helps you plan the travel. So everything's not last minute, because when things are last minute, they cost a lot more.
Absolutely. And for our folks leaving comments and questions, I do see those now on the screen. Admittedly, this is our first time using this fancy software. So I see the comments and questions, and we have a section we're going to do at the end where we're going to take on those. I want to jump to, because some of them are about finances. Now, some of them are in regards to finances of the travel, which we can get to that question specifically. But let's talk just a little bit about scholarships, because I know this is a thing that traditionally when people are thinking about my child is talented at something, somebody may pay for them to go to college as if they were the quarterback or, or they were the point guard. It's a little different in musical theater. And it does harken back to that supply and demand, unfortunately, of 3,000 kids auditioning for 12 spots. There traditionally just are not as many scholarship opportunities, but I would love to know from our folks who have just, again, at the finish line, what have you found out? What have we learned about scholarship opportunities? And anyone can take this.
I'll start. There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Now you go, Bill.
Well, the only thing I would say that I found, and certainly everyone chime in and correct me, but the most money that I've seen so far has been tied to academic, not necessarily the talent and artistic side. Now we're in the middle of offer season, so maybe we'll see that change a little bit, but most of the schools, it's really tied to how well the kids did academically, whether they were test optional and had good test scores and submitted those, or just really high GPAs. So that's what I've seen so far in terms of the most money so far available.
Emily, did you have something too?
I agree. And we were surprised by how much scholarship money there was, because even if you get a much larger academic award, still with an artistic award, even if it's half as much, the auditioning cost a lot more than we thought it would, but school's going to probably cost a lot less. So that was surprising to us.
Amazing. And that was actually one of the questions we had was about the auditioning process expenses. So we'll hop on that when we get to the questions at the end, because that definitely is a consideration and one of the reasons where strategy with things like credit card points and things like that can come into play to help make this a little more accessible. Let's go to let's talk about supporting our kiddos. So this is obviously a year that is filled with a lot of uncertainty. It's got a lot of responsibility. And then we also have the juggling point of they're also seniors in high school. How do we make sure that you're enjoying this literal once in a lifetime year that they get to have? How do we balance all that? How do we support? How do we not be too much over them about these things? Let them kind of run with the ball a little bit. What have we learned this year about the most successful tactic in being there, but also letting them pace it themselves?
Yeah, I just try to be a grounding force, because the emotions are on a roller coaster starting in the summer, before senior year, once the big opening of the applications and the essay push and the pre-screens and that. So it's just trying on a day-to-day basis to see what I need to be for him. But it's challenging too as a parent to try to pull back and let them have the independence. Federico, wrote all of his own essays, and I just helped with the technical aspect of the pre-screens as far as like start the camera, start the music, that kind of thing. So he really wanted to have that control of those things. But there needs to be close parental surveillance when things are being submitted and deadlines, especially, just to make sure there's so many moving parts, like that nothing gets missed, but also giving them that chance to have that independence and have their say.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that? That was great.
I think when you're traveling with your child, AirPods are your best friend and their best friend, because sometimes you just need to be quiet and not say anything and let them be. And sometimes they need their AirPods to be quiet and let themselves be. Laird and I learned to, like, I would go for a walk and he would stay at the hotel, or he would go down to the lobby and just kind of hang out, and while I would stay in the room. We learned to try to navigate and give each other some space, because it's a lot of togetherness. I loved it, but it's a lot of togetherness, and you just have to really, I think, be in tune with your kid. And I think as we went through the process, I became more and more in tune to what he needed. And I was I think it's like having a newborn, right? You don't know what to expect and you kind of learn as you go. And so by the end of the process, I felt so much more in tune to what he needed from me and when, without even having to talk about it. Whereas at the beginning of the process, I was like, need that. Yeah. So I think you learn as you go for sure. AirPods are important.
Okay. AirPods in. Anybody else have any important lessons learned?
The only thing I would add was just kind of what Suzanne alluded to, and she even alluded to it earlier. Everybody's process is different. All of our kids are different in what they need, and so I've seen, because I got so many friends now through this process, each kid needs something different from their parent, and so you just have to meet them where they are and what their needs are. So, and as Suzanne said, you'll find that out pretty quickly in the process, and because it's such a long process, you'll have plenty of time to master it and get it right by the end of it.
One of these questions that we have here is a little bit in relation. Again, these are our prepared questions. We'll get to some of them. I see them still coming in. So thank you all for asking the questions in the chat. We will get to those. I want to talk a little bit about, we talked briefly a moment ago about maybe that school that's not the Carnegie Mellon, the Michigan, the one that's at the top of the list, that really does something to like wow you, or something that really makes a school stand out. I would love to know, what are some things or ways that schools have connected with you as parents? What really were things that stood out, or things that you were looking for as like the bar for where you want to send your child for 4 years? Bill, you want to take it away with that?
Sure. It's a difficult process, and so I'll say that at the top. And for me personally, and I think a lot of the parents would probably agree, the schools that spent the most time with your kids during the audition and really felt like they got to know them, and maybe you yourself got to know the program, those were the ones that you had the best and the most, and you were surprised that, hey, they really like this. But you also have to check yourself, and there's going to be some top schools. We were talking before we got on here. There's some schools that are very standard, and you're not going to get a lot of feedback in the room. You're not going to get a lot of questions. You're going to sing and you're going to leave the room, and you can't take anything by that and read anything into it. And so you just kind of have to roll with that. So being flexible is key to this process. The other thing is, for me, I'm a researcher, and so there are a lot of podcasts out there with all the theater heads. And you'll be surprised when you get into these Q&A sessions how many parents ask questions that are kind of easy to find and are publicly available. And so I always try not to make my son look silly by asking a silly question, even though there's probably no silly questions. But a lot of it was available before, like all different aspects of it, whether it's class size and that sort of thing. But yeah.
Anybody else have anything else that made you a school stand out, or something that was unique that really made you as a parent feel the good vibes, as the kids would say?
Some of the schools are very straight laced in the audition room. And I think that was startling to Lizzie, because she knew some of the professors from master classes and knew their personality wasn't like that. And I do think that is so important to know, that that's just how some schools are. And at this point, I almost feel like that can be a kindness, because there's sometimes when you go to an audition and they're telling you they love you and you're wonderful and we can picture you here. And then you hear those kids don't get an offer and you think, well, maybe it's better just not to say anything. I don't know. All I can tell you, the funniest story we always say is, Lizzie went to one audition and she said, oh, they hated me. They didn't say one thing. They hate me. They hate me. She got the offer and she was like, huh, but it wasn't that at all. It was just, that's how they are. And so I think there's some that, she is always going to have a huge spot in her heart for. If you think about it, we've done all these auditions. So say we did 24, but think of how many auditions the professors did. It's mind-boggling. I mean, I think it's about 500 at least for each school. So I think she would just come back from auditions just impressed how much they fed into all the kids, particularly if they had an introduction, not always in the audition room, but that was just always really meant a lot, I think, to a lot of our kids, when there was a sense of, we appreciate you. We know this is hard. Just try to be yourself.
Yeah, and I think some of them probably, especially some of the schools that are the most in demand with the fewest spaces, I think probably some of the professors have learned to put on that a little bit because they know how almost more crushing false hope can be. So I think they do put that wall up to protect the kids, because they also know that even if they love the kid, it's not just their decision, right? It's a whole panel. So yeah, for sure they do. So that was a little bit into the realm of things that schools did to stand out. I would just love to know, maybe this is a little more of a fun question, but you've traveled with your children a lot. We've heard tips about that. We've heard about all the auditions you've done. What were some of the highlights or unexpected memories? And we'll let everybody go around the horn with this one that came up with this year that you have. What's something that really just surprised you? Debbie, you want to start us off? Oh, I'm sorry, I got to unmute you, Deb.
Oh, okay. We had an on-campus master class in Syracuse the week of the big snowstorm coming through. So we decided to leave a day before the storm as to avoid any travel delays, cancellations, that kind of thing. So we ended up, in addition to our audition day, we signed up for a campus tour, just a regular campus tour. And in front of the VPA building in Syracuse on the hill is the VPA building is a large Harry Potter-like old building. And they pointed out in the tour that, when it snows, the kids will bring any kind of form of sled they can make, like a lid to a Rubbermaid tote, cardboard, whatever, and they sled down this hill. So we just were like, oh, that's kind of funny. And so the next day was his audition day, full day, like 8:30 to 6:30. And when he came out, we're from Florida, so snow was a big, big deal. So it was snowing, the big, giant, fluffy snowflakes. So Fed immediately wanted to go and see if the kids were sledding down the hill, which they were. So he was standing there watching, and they came over and invited him and shared their little makeshift sleds. So he spent the evening sledding down the hill with these students who were so kind and engaging and inviting. So that was a pleasant surprise for him. But then I was like, I love these kids, because you want your kids to go to a school, despite the competition, where they're going to be surrounded by great humans, loving and kind, and just a kind community. So that was just an unexpected, wonderful, warm fuzzy that we had from that Syracuse audition.
I love that. That's really fun. Did you get to sled?
I did not. I was just making sure, because they were sledding down the hill, which ended in a street with many lampposts. So I was trying to guard and keep people safe as they were.
We still have more auditions to do. Yeah, exactly. Emily, any memories from this time?
We have had burrata at every audition we've gone to. I think we've had burrata. I think I've had burrata all across the United States. And that was just our funny thing that we did.
Where was the best burrata? That's the question we have to ask.
Gosh, we had some good burrata in Chicago. Okay. We had some, Italy has really good burrata. No matter where you are, they have house-made burrata. So that was just our funny thing, is everybody, maybe not everybody, but we got really, Lizzie would get a little superstitious about how we have a joke that, the shoes that she wears to her auditions, they're barely it's good that the audition season is over, because she would not wear different shoes, and they are barely surviving. Yeah. So that was one of our things, was we always would have burrata. And since we'd be at each school or at each place for about 3 days, I have eaten a lot of burrata.
I love it. That's one. We have a questionnaire for our new program for the rising seniors. It was the College Audition Edge. And we had a questionnaire with the professors, and we had each of our 9 professors tell their favorite place to eat when you're visiting their school or their city. So that's going to be a fun thing we're putting out in the summer.
That's important to know.
You could have known where to get your burrata. So yeah, there we have it. Bill, memories. What you got?
Yeah, so 2 really, but one isn't necessarily a specific memory, but it was definitely a unexpected outcome of this process. So I'll say this on the front end. It potentially is one of the most stressful years of your life. So know that going in. I'm just being completely honest. However, one of the byproducts of this process is, without fail, I'm pretty sure this happens. You will make some dear friends. In fact, the three women on here I consider friends. In fact, talking about a funny story. So we did a Christmas trip down to Key West, and because we knew Debbie and Fed, and we made a plan to meet up with them, went out to dinner, came back to their house. Fed's dad did a magic trick for us. It was phenomenal. We just had a blast. And Susanna and I were really close and have traveled so many places together. She mentioned Cap W. I couldn't go. That was the only trip I couldn't go. I sent Cole with her, flew him to Texas. She picked him up and they stayed in an Airbnb. She and I and the kids have stayed in an Airbnb together. So the friendships that, I mentioned earlier, finding your tribe, but the friendships that have been made, will last a lifetime. We just had someone come to Cole's show this weekend that we met 2 years ago during his summer program, and she came to a show because she lives about an hour away. So the other little thing that I'll say is soak up this time with your kids. You'll never have more time in your life probably to spend with your child than you will now, because they're about to leave. They're about to fly off, do their thing. And when they do, they'll come home for summers and sparse here and there, and then they start doing their life. And the most time that you'll be able to spend with your children are during this time. So while it's the most stressful, it'll also be one of the most, best memories you ever had.
Yeah, it's far more time than anybody ever. I mean, I remember my senior year of high school, I was never at home. I was always out and about doing things. So you're getting all this bonus time, which is really, really special. Susanna, talk a little bit about the memories or highlights from your travels with Laird, 16 auditions.
So one of our most fondest memories is when he went to Penn State for his on-campus audition. They have a restaurant there called the Corner Room, and it was built in 1855, the same year that the school was built. And they did this little special 12 Days of Christmas, and in their rolled silverware, they had a golden spoon, one per day for 12 days. And the night before Laird's audition, he got the golden spoon. And we had no idea what was going on. All of a sudden, the manager comes to the table and all the staff starts coming over to the table, and they're like congratulating him and talking about this golden spoon. And we look down, there's this little tiny golden spoon on the table that he had opened in his silverware. And so they said, "Oh, you get a free dessert and you're going to be on all of our social media pages and all this stuff." And he's like, "Mom, I'm going to be a star and I haven't even auditioned for Penn State yet." He's like so excited. And so he took that spoon and put it, and it was small, like this big, and he put it in his pocket for the audition the next day. And he carried that spoon to every single audition. He wore it in his pocket for every singing and monologue audition. And then for his dance auditions, he would put it in his backpack with his water bottle. And so that spoon went to every single audition with him. And we'll just never forget the Corner Room and the golden spoon. And I think he'll hold on to that golden spoon forever. Like it may go to auditions for Broadway someday. Who knows?
Yeah,
in a panic mode if you can't find that spoon before an audition.
Right. You need some spray paint and some backup spoons.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. The restaurant needs to know that.
Yeah.
Before we get to our questions here that are in the chat, my last prepared question for you guys is just, you've all done a lot of prep work to get ready for this year. Obviously, lots of research. Bill, our self-proclaimed nerd, has done all his list, all of his prep work. But obviously, we're here now at the finish line for you all. If you had to do something differently, is there anything that you would strategically do differently to set you up for success, or something to go easier than perhaps that was perhaps challenging? Anything you would change? We can.
So I'll answer that first, just because Laird and I talked about this last night, and he said, "Mom, I wouldn't change a thing." He said, everybody has their own way of doing this, and he's like, I don't know what the results are going to be. Laird right now, Laird has 2 no's and 2 yeses. We're still waiting on 12 schools. So we don't know if what we did was the right thing or not. We know we enjoyed it. We had so many special moments, and he feels great about the work that he presented at every single audition. And he feels so just honored to have gone through this process and have grown so much as a human being, as an artist. And he feels proud of the work he presented, and we just wouldn't change a thing.
And he got a golden spoon.
And he got a golden spoon.
Come on. I love that. Emily, anything you would add?
No, I just say we started really early, and I think a lot of our friends thought that we were odd because we started early. Not my friends on this screen, but some friends maybe from our town and who'd had success going through the process with a lot less preparation. But I will say that I think we enjoyed the process because we were so prepared. And that doesn't make it easy. It's so hard. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's all butterflies and rainbows over here. It's not. It's hard work. But it's we knew it was going to be hard work, and she was ready. And I just feel like being prepared really made it so that she doesn't have regrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't get any better than that. Debbie?
I really think Fed's been happy with our approach. One thing that he did that was different than most was when he first started researching, he started making slides for each school with the mascots and the colors and all that. So just to kind of keep his notes from his own research, podcasts, faculty, friends, and keeping everything, the sources separate. And then it grew into, the slides grew and grew. And then when it was time to write his essays, he really just consulted his slides from his own research. He didn't have to go back and research. So that was just something unique that he did. But I guess we were just grateful to have, learned early of what, even though we didn't start really deep diving research as a sophomore, but starting the process. But I just felt knowing what was in store was the greatest benefit. And then, starting earlier rather than later, of course. But
and I will say I have been at some of these combined auditions, and I have seen seniors gathered around in a circle looking at this slideshow. It is quite an impressive slideshow. And if Fed, I don't doubt that he could come up with some way to make it an app that people could download and he could monetize. He could pay for college with the information that is found within this slideshow.
I'll add the information that's on it. It started from research. And then what he does after a single audition, he walks out of the room and goes and finds a place to sit quietly and adds on his slides who was in the room, feedback they, how was the audition, what did he sing, like all immediately afterwards, because especially if you're doing like Moonifieds, he did 18 auditions at Moonifieds within like 3 days. So, if you don't really make those notes right when you come out of the room, it may blur together. What did they say again? Or who was in the room? So he really made a point to document that right was fresh in his mind, like straight out of the room. So the slideshow has kind of become a phenomenon of his creation, but it really, has proven to be a great source of information. Even now with he has 3 acceptances. And so he's keeping track of what school he's got accepted, wait list, the whole thing is really just, all of his information is in one piece, because spreadsheets just, for me as well, it doesn't work when it's spread across the screen and you can't put everything, in one place. So he's a very visual person, and it's really worked great for him. But each kid finds their own system.
Yeah, no, it's very, very cool. Bill, you got anything there for us?
I really don't. I mean, we similar, right? I mean, there's tips and tricks, but nothing. I don't think we regret or would change anything about our process to a degree. I mean, there may have been 1 or 2 auditions maybe we would have scheduled differently, or done it differently, because like Debbie said, we did, I think, 13 to 16 auditions at Moonifieds, and so you do have to calculate a little bit. Some schools you may want to wait and do them later, because there is some growth in your kids for between November. I mean, think about it. If you're watching this call, today's February 26th. You could potentially be having your first audition in early November. Cole had 2 auditions in November before he left for Moonifieds, and then had all of those. So 8 months away or something before and you've got a lot of prep work to do before then. So, so then there's a lot of growth between November even, and then when Unifieds was in February. So, maybe some strategic decisions like that, but overall, nothing.
I love it. We're going to hop on to some of these questions here. Some of these we covered a little earlier, but I just want to give a quick rundown answer. I'll throw them up on the screen as we got them. We've got this one from Julie is, what is Unifieds? We talked about that very in the early part of this. Is the Unifieds are a combined audition where a bunch of schools all come to one specific city to host a bunch of auditions. I think I heard somebody say that their child did 10 auditions in one weekend. It's an opportunity to really be able to knock out auditions efficiently, quickly, without having to visit those 10 different schools. It happens in 3 different cities. It goes New York, Chicago, and then LA every single year. And you don't register, and someone can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't register on like a Unified's website. You still register for auditions through the individual colleges. You just select that as the site where you're going to audition. Our next question here, we're going to get some piped in. We'll get there it is. Get some answers from our panel here. Obviously, we don't need specific numbers and things, but how much financially should we prepare for these auditions? Obviously, with every application, there's application fees and all those for each university. That's just separate from even the musical theater audition and the travel. What's our best advice for our people thinking about the financial planning aspect of this year?
Well, I know one thing that really surprised me was I didn't take into account that basically you're paying 3 fees. You're paying an academic application fee, you're paying an artistic application fee, and then a lot of times you're paying an audition fee once they pass the pre-screen. And I just, all my research, I was ready for travel and Unifieds and all these things, but 3 different fees just to get the paperwork done was a surprise to me. So just know that that's real. And they range anywhere from $30 to $90 per fee.
The thing I would say in terms of talking about finances is, we spent a lot of time on this call because 3 of us went there to Unifieds, but there's several different large audition sites. So there's Unifieds, there's Unifieds, there's CAP, there's FCA down in Florida. So to me, if you can do several auditions at one time, it will really save you. I mean, everyone on the call probably can attest to, if it's just one single college audition trip, on average, probably sets you back $1,000, a little over, 1,500 something, right? Because you got two airplane tickets, hotel room, potentially rental car, Uber fees, restaurants. So the more you can do at a combined thing will really save you in the end, even if it's a larger number to do those combined ones. It saves you 2 or 3 auditions right there.
I had a little tip about visiting the schools and also attending like webinars. A lot of times if you visit or attend a webinar, they'll give you a fee waiver that you can, when you're applying, that will waive, not the audition really and the artistic fees, but the general academic application. So I know one from Ryder. We got some from just like, and I think Ithaca, just for watching their webinar on their schools. So you can get those codes.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
That's great.
There's also a lot of virtual auditions. I don't know if people realize that. And something that I was really surprised by is through Get Accepted, where that's where you put your pre-screen information in for most schools. Get Accepted has a virtual walk-in that I was totally unaware of until about 2 weeks before it was. Everybody gets this email saying, hey, register for Get Accepted virtual walk-ins. And I'm thinking, what in the world? All the research, I never knew this existed. And there's about 50, 60 schools that do that. There's a lot of ways that you can save money if you cannot get on an airplane and travel somewhere. Like there are ways to get it done.
And that's also a great, you say walk-ins, that reminds me, when you go to these auditions, a lot of times some of the schools will be there. There'll be a list and it will be passed around. Your children will know. There are a handful of schools at those Unified auditions where you don't necessarily have to have an appointment in advance, where you can do a walk-in. And that's an opportunity as well to meet a face, a school, an opportunity that maybe wasn't on your radar that becomes very quickly on your radar. You meet I think of our good friend Hank Stratton, who's building up the program right now at Nebraska. Like maybe you're not as familiar with that program, then you meet someone like that who's dynamic and has all the experience in the world of the industry, is building this brand new program, and you're one over and you never knew. So that's certainly, walk-ins are a thing, both virtually on Get Accepted, which I didn't know that either, and at in-person auditions. This question, I'll just answer this one very quickly because this is a popular question. What I would say to this is, many people have access to writing a blog, and many people have opinions, and there are all kinds of lists you're going to find with top 10 schools, and you'll see probably 4 or 5 of the same names on any top 10 list. But beyond that, it's a real crapshoot, and being ranked on that list doesn't equate to being the best spot for your child's happiness, your child's well-being. It could be a school, like I said, that you've never heard of. So you can Google around if you're just curious about what these lists are, but it really is not a lot to set your heart attached to any one particular person's opinion of what the top 10 musical theater schools are. This is a question that Steve had about finding the coaches to interview. Susanna, you mentioned taking the opportunity to talk to a bunch of different coaches and what you learned and gained from that. How did you find those?
Just Google and MT Parents page on Facebook. You can Google musical theater college audition coaches, and there is a plethora of them. Also, the MT Parents page has lots and lots of information. All you got to do is ask a question, and you'll have 30 responses pretty quickly. So I just did my research, and if one looked interesting, Laird and I would look at the website and schedule an interview and go from there.
And when she mentions the MT Parents page, for my newbies, I know I got some newbies on here, which is who this is geared towards. So thank you for asking questions. MT Parents is a pretty popular group that is limited only to parents. In that group, it's a group on Facebook. In that group, you'll find parents whose children are in college, maybe even out of college, and a lot of folks who are just like yourselves getting ready to go into the process. It's got thousands of members and like
6,000 members.
6,000 members. So it's a great resource, and it's a insular, safe community for parents to have pretty open and free discussions about their experiences at different summer programs and things like that.
I do recommend muting it when you're like eyeball deep in the process, because it can cause a lot of anxiety. Just stay away from that page.
That's advice that I've heard a lot, is once offers and things start rolling in, maybe it's not necessarily.
Yeah. It's great when you're prepping, but in January and February, not so great.
Alicia's asked, how many schools do most MTs apply for? It's a lot. I think on this call, we've got like upper mid-20s, 16 to like mid-20s as the number of schools that typically they apply for. That's why when we think about the daunting, the triple fees, as Susanna was just saying, it gets to be a whole lot. So any advantage or a strategic plan you can have to really narrow down your list. I'll mention it again. My friend Mark Christine always talks about working with your child to refine the list of their like non-negotiables, right? And he'll always talk about like, what type of environment do you want? Do you want to be on a big college campus with a football team? Do you want to be in New York City? You can kind of, if you really start having those conversations, you can kind of narrow down the list a little bit, but you do want to spread a pretty broad net, because again, it's 2,000 to 3,000 people auditioning for very few spots. So you want to be sure you've cast a wide net so that there is some hopefully opportunity and options. Let me see. We have some questions about when do pre-screens begin and when the auditions kind of started. I see Tony has a similar question about when were the majority of your auditions. So we'll talk about when if anybody wants to jump in, when your child filmed their pre-screens and when they started sending them in.
The sooner the better. Just saying, the sooner the better.
So
Laird spent June writing essays, July doing his pre-screens.
Yeah, Emily.
Well, Lizzie wanted to go to SSTI the summer before her senior year. And so we said, that's great. You also want to do your senior musical starting right when school starts. you're going to have to film your pre-screens in June. And I think for a lot of kids that maybe wouldn't have worked as well. But since she really felt ready, she went ahead and did that. And I cannot even tell you how thankful she was that she did that. It just eased up her summer for whatever reason, even though right now you may think your kid goes down to their basement and makes videos all the time. When there's that much pressure involved, especially if there's any sort of time crunch, you really want to avoid that when they feel like their entire future depends upon these videos they're making. So just like Susanna said, I just think the earlier the better, because you can always redo them. If there's growth and you want new videos, take new videos, but to have them done that was a huge blessing.
Here's a question that you guys would want to chime in on from your experiences. The chances of getting in by auditioning at the school versus at Unifieds. Do you feel that, have you felt in this process that there's any difference at all?
I don't think there is.
That's generally the answer we get from our professors as well, that it's generally there's no advantage. The only vibe check, again, to use our kids' terms, you would get from being on campus is you would get to see facilities and things like that. But I always typically tell people, my musical theater folks at least, to try to do a lot of those visits maybe after you've been accepted, if finances are a concern, so that if we have limited resources for trips, go visit the ones you've been accepted to, for sure. Steve asked a question: is Get Accepted an app? So Get Accepted is a application-based website that you will use. It's actually, if you decide to apply for SSTI or College Audition Edge, we actually use it as well. But a lot of universities use it as the primary host website for their auditions. On our side of it, we can assign users. Everybody within the university or within the program can see all the auditions, and we can make internal comments. So it's a website that you will go to. And the quirky thing about it is, for all my newbies, it is spelled ACCEPT. There's no ED, so it's Get Accepted without the ED, without the E of the ED there. Let's see. Tony says, what if your child is determined to go to school in NYC? How do I help them see other options? That's a very specific choice. I always tell our kids that New York is going to be there. And if you're in musical theater, New York at some point in your journey is going to be your destination. I personally don't know that it's the right choice for, and I have a feeling this is also what you're hinting, that maybe it's not the best place for an 18-year-old to just step on off into the streets of New York City. But a lot of students do want to do it, and there's some great programs here in New York City. But it's there are a myriad of opportunities, and I do believe, and I know Tony, your child is, I believe, attending the Edge with us this summer. We'll get to experience being in New York City this summer for a week with other rising seniors prepping for college auditions. So we'll get to see that vibe, and then they'll get to compare that when they go to visit other universities and things like that. And can see, like, well, I spent a week in New York City working in classes all day with college professors. This summer, I saw what that was like living in New York. I saw what the subway was like. I saw the everything about New York City. And then you go to a campus like Elon, which is probably the exact opposite of the streets of New York City. You know, glowing campus with flowers and trees, and it's beautiful. Just very different world. So I think you're probably doing the best thing by letting him come experience it this summer and seeing New York City. And if that strikes gold in his heart, there are a lot of kids who that is the case, and New York City might be the right home, but he'll definitely get a glimpse of that this summer, and then can compare it as he goes throughout the year. Rachel says, do pre-screens need to be sent to schools after academic acceptance? Can they be sent in before? Somebody want to jump on that for me?
Well, for Moonifieds, if you do the Moonifieds event, which is the week before Thanksgiving, the pre-screens, well, not all of the schools. It just depends on the school. Many of them, I know Elon, they didn't even want you to apply academically until you sent your pre-screens. So, but I think the majority, gosh, I just think that the pre-screens went first for the Moonifieds group. But you do have to apply academically also very early. So we just started out the gate filling out academics and also working on pre-screen submissions together. Some schools, when you get your result, you don't get an academic result and then an artistic result. Some are together, some are separate.
Yeah.
So we did all of the academic applications first. So 100% of his academic applications were done by September 1st. I think there were a couple that hadn't opened yet. So we were just waiting, but ready to go, because you have to apply to the school academically and artistically. And so the academic part's the one that's in your control, right? So get that done first. And then while your kid is working on the pre-screen process, you can get all that academic done first.
And this is a similar question coming in from Lauren. Are those submitted to each school that you intend to apply to, and then you attend Unifieds, or do you still attend Unifieds even if you not make it past pre-screens? So to answer that latter part, if a school does not accept you through pre-screens, you won't have the opportunity to audition for them at Unifieds. The first part of this question, Bill, help me out here. Are those submitted to each school that you intend to apply to and then attend Unifieds? Can you talk a little bit about that order?
So, yeah, you will submit your pre-screen. So as Susanna said, we did all of our academics first. Unifieds there will be a few that you have to submit around the same time, if not before, or usually at the same time, though, I think. But generally, you'll submit those schools, you'll submit your academic, and then you'll submit your pre-screens once the pre-screens open up. And that will kind of determine what your schedule is going to look like of where you can audition and when you can audition. And each school has their own process. Most of them use Get Accepted, but there's a handful that Michigan only uses their website. There's some schools, JMU uses something called Slider Rule. So, and all of them are a little bit different with your pre-screens and how you upload them, other than Get Accepted, which is nice because it's more standardized. But so be prepared for that. But yeah, that's kind of the order of when you would submit your pre-screens, and then that will determine what schools you can do at Unifieds. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, there's walk-in opportunities at Unifieds that you don't have to submit pre-screens to.
Absolutely. And we'll give one final call here for other folks who have questions. I also see on our Facebook chat that one of our lighting designers for our production program, Christian, is in the chat, who is a faculty member at Penn State. He's got some helpful hints. Fun fact about Christian, he's a lighting designer, but he has his BFA in musical theater, so he can sing and dance too. So he's got some helpful things there. If there are no other questions, we are at our hour mark here, just a little bit over. I would like to thank let me take Lauren. Your question was wonderful, but I'll take you out of the spotlight there. There we are. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on this call tonight. Debbie, Bill, Emily, and Susanna, thank you for being here. Thank you for, just personally for me at SSTI every summer, for sharing your amazingly talented children who are as good of humans as they are performers. And for that, I'm so very proud. You have a lot to be proud of. And this is going to be a really exciting next month or so as you find out where they're going to be in their homes. The university is going to be so very excited to get them, whichever university is so lucky. Thank you everyone for being online. Thank you for being with us. This is going to be posted online, so you can go back and watch any of this, or if you missed anything in the early part. The last thing I'll say is I'll invite you to check out what we do every summer. For 17 years, Southeastern Summer Theater Institute has been producing musical theater and technical theater programs in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Students come from all over the world, much like these four have sent their students to our programs. And we've got a new program this summer, the College Audition Edge, which is in New York City. That's what we were talking about with that question earlier. We've got 9 college professors who are going to be working with just rising seniors to do mock auditions. They're going to be doing classes each and every day. That's like 20 classes with these college professors in small groups. So they're going to be working in each and every one of those classes. And we're getting ready to announce, I'll drop the T here, that we're bringing on our new Chief Inspiration Officer for that program. And Jen Colella is going to be joining us, our friend. She comes to work with us a lot and Hilton Head on our SSTI campus. But Jen Colella is coming in as our Chief Inspiration Officer. She'll be the first face that our students see on the very first night of the Edge, and they'll get to go see her in SUFs and do a talk back. And then she'll come on the very last day and do a little bit of team building and motivation before they do their mock audition, before they head home. Well, some of them will actually even stay because we're going to do some pre-screen filming on that next day. But that's what we do at SSTI. You can certainly, we'd be grateful if you look that up. But for the most part, thank you for being here. I'm going to go see what the mascot has gotten into since she got kicked out of the room very early on in this meeting. And thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.